on, fam? Kyle here from the Value Adds Value podcast. Wanted to welcome you back to another episode in which we have our whole team together. Actually, nice one. We have just added another team member who you'll hear on the podcast next week. But we're back to this conversation about what we've been struggling with over this course of distance learning, and what we're noticing. And the second half of this conversation that we introduced last week is really trying to get focused on preparing for the fall and whether or not we are going back to classrooms, whether we're doing hybrids, whether we're doing virtual. We all kind of came to the agreement that we need to get prepared. We need to do things like just starting out, like be better about parent communications and expectations and all that stuff. And that's what you'll hear in this conversation. But before you listen, I want to make sure 100% that our organization, us as teachers, us as people, we are 100% here to support you. So if there's ever anything you need, whether it's just somebody to talk to or ideas for PD or ideas for classroom learning or anything, please reach out. Do not hesitate to find us on social media. Go to our website, theledproject.com. Send us an email, whatever you need. But we hope that the end of your school year goes well, and that you appreciate the work you're doing and what you've done in a difficult situation. And as always, thanks for listening to Value as I hope you enjoy the episode.
And you're so on point. Gosh, I just wrote that down, redefining what engagement looks like for this platform. Because one of the other things that we were going to talk about next, and it's like a perfect segue, is the lag time with feedback with students. I know for me, my experience is my students get their math assignments on Tuesdays. Tuesdays I have office hours for an hour. And then on Thursday, I do all-day video conferencing at 9, 10, 11, and 12. 4 different times, same lesson. And so by the time my students complete an assignment say they finish it on Thursday, those kids are not really required to go back in and see anything that I've given them until next Tuesday. And so now they have to go in and look at what I've done. I don't actually get a face-to-face to them legally until Thursday, which really I have to go on to something new. I can't really go back to, I try to scaffold back within the time frame, but we have 30-minute sessions. I've stretched mine out to 45 minutes because discourse in math is so big. You have to actually talk about what you're doing. And in learning period. So I try to get 15 minutes of discourse. Let's talk about it. Unmute your mics and let's have a conversation, But how do we fix that? That lag time? Like, how do we adjust our governor to accommodate that lag time? How do we do that? No one?
That's such a big question. I don't honestly know if I have an answer because I haven't figured that out myself.
Would that be where it is important to have pre-recorded lessons built in? Which is one of my frustrations for teachers, is that I don't think you have been given the time to do that. I really think in the fall that there should be, time to just pre-plan for 4 to 6 weeks of this. But I'm not sure. I completely hear what you're saying. How do you, because we know we do have those kiddos who in the physical space of classroom learning, they're done with their hand up in 15 minutes saying what do I do now? Or can I move on? I think that's a really important question, because how do we respect and understand that teachers cannot in this way just crank it out like with 200 kids all day every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like an unreasonable ask of one teacher to, you know, labor for that kind of setting. Which also makes me think, then is that reasonable for the physical building? But but yeah, I think that's a big important issue to have your peers really discuss, you know, as teaching teams and subject area teams and grade level teams with your administrators, because there has to be a new way of sharing that load, that teaching load. We have to get more creative with how we're creating the content that they're needing.
Well,
And one thing, go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead.
oh, and what I was just gonna say, you know, with the lag time piece, and I was talking about it, like I hand out paper packets on a Monday and I don't get them back until the following Thursday. And I know it was brought up on here a while back where we were talking about Zoom fatigue, but also like respecting parents by not calling every time something's missing. You know, like parents were getting overwhelmed. So for me, like I send out emails to kids all the time and I don't ever get responses. I don't ever get questions from kids. And that's really for me where the kind of the lag time question is because we used to hang our hats like on that not just the discourse between kids, but the discourse between us and the student, of being able to give that immediate feedback. And it's just really, and I think that's my biggest pain point right now, is I feel like, and where I'm failing is I'm not able to give my kids feedback, not because I'm not trying, it's just all the parameters and the way the situation has, you know, developed over the last 7 weeks.
Yeah, I think I just want to talk to my kids. Like, another reason why I don't want to go to our locker clean out is it'll be really hard to not see my students and want to give them hugs. Like, you know, being there. And I was actually at Target and I saw one of my students from last year and they went to run up to me and I was like, oh, wait, no, you can't hug me, you know. And it's been hard, and I miss giving them that immediate feedback in person, because sometimes if they're struggling, they need to see you. Yes, they're seeing you virtually, but it's not the same. Like, body language is harder to read. They look at all those things. They look to you for confidence, and it's not the easiest to do over this platform. As hard as we try, it's hard to deliver that emotional feedback as well.
And something Kyle talked about earlier, we were just chatting. He talked about the irony of living in a digital world where everything moves so quickly that now that we're teaching in the digital world, everything is moving so slow. In my classroom, my virtual classroom, I'm literally having to redefine what wait time is, because, you know, they tell you, you know, teacher books, when you're teaching, allow wait time before you get a response. That wait time is like crickets. You know, I'm like, unmute your microphones and say something. You just see a bunch of little red microphones, and I'm like, I'm gonna unmute everybody. And then they're like, I don't have anything. I don't have anything. I don't have anything. And I'm like, oh my God. So I mean, that is just so ironic that we're in this. Let's go. But everything is kind of like back to snail mail. I told him it's like the equivalent of me writing a letter and mailing it to my next door neighbor. You know, that's kind of how it feels like. You know, it's just, yeah, I don't know.
It's so true though. Like, even like I said, I'm not doing the virtual lessons like either the live lessons like you guys are doing, but for me, just trying, you know, I'll post a lesson on Monday, but trying to get feedback to 122 students is hard. I mean, I'm like, should I be in elementary school where I only have 30 kids? Because these 120, 130 kids, it's hard to give valuable, you know, great feedback. And a lot of the time, some of their answers, I don't know. They'll just say, I don't know. No, like very, you know, very yes, no, short answers. And it's just hard. And I feel like I'm not doing enough as a teacher. And I have to constantly remind myself, like, it is fine.
Hmm.
You're doing okay. And I think we all need to remind ourselves that. Like, we need a pat on the back, a little clap, round of applause, because we're doing great. Well, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And, I'm always the glass half full guy. That's me all the time. And as I look at my engagement and those kids who I know they're not getting it by the physical response. They don't have to tell me, Mr. Law, I don't understand. I can literally be teaching, and when I'm done, I can tell by the look in your eye that you did not really quite grasp what I did. So I can set everybody else afloat, and I can come over here and slowly get you off the banks. And right now, those kids who were there, they're even more there now. Like, they're not even near the pool whatsoever. They're like, I'm gonna be as far away from this as possible because now I'm really exposed and I don't have anybody there to coax me into where I'm going. And I have a mixture of parents. I have those hover parents who are on the literal virtual call with me, with my kids. Um, and I'm totally fine with it. I tell parents, let me give you a disclaimer. You're going to get the Mr. Law that's going to be in the classroom. So when I'm cracking jokes, the kids know who I'm talking about. When I'm saying things and I'm doing things, your kids will know what I mean and how I'm doing it. I say, so if I say something that you may think it's a little thing, check the kid's response. If your kid's not shaking up, this is me. you know and so one of the parents was like, no, I love sit she emailed me. She said, I love sitting in your classes. You break it down. It's me and a co-teach, so we have the ability to really break things down a lot easier because you get two different perspectives at one time. So I'll chime in, he'll chime in, and go back and forth, and so the kids kind of get that understanding. But you know when you think about how we're going to approach next year, I heard somebody say, do we start preparing kids in August for distance learning? Do we create in our classrooms hybrids already built in? I know I tried it this year to try to do it because I thought, not that I thought COVID would happen, just because I thought I'm an online student. I know this is the wave of the future. More kids are going to be doing this digital thing. Why wait until you get there to realize how to manage that load? And that's one of the things we've been hearing from all of us say, kids can't manage that. They don't know how to so maybe that needs to be worked into a curriculum to say how to manage digital learning. Not even digital learning, how to learn in a digital world. Like how to set up those times where we try to do it, give kids a schedule. You can pick between these different days, these are offered. But I know a lot of campuses didn't do that. A lot of campuses didn't do that. Our kids know between Monday through Friday, what subject area they're going to check in with. We still have kids, but again, 85% of our kids are online engaged right now. My question is always, what about that 15 that's not? And the ones that are engaged, they're not doing the work. They'll respond to my life lesson with law, my little share something that you think, my inspirational piece, and do none of my math work. And I'm okay with that. I'm 100% okay with that because you're still engaging. I want you to be engaged with the math, but do I want to call your parents every week and be like, hey, little Johnny hadn't turned in his homework. You know, he hadn't turned in his work for the last week. Well, he said he was on there. Yeah, he was on there, but this is all he did. I don't know what's going on in the house. I don't know who's doing what, but we're told we're supposed to make those calls every single week. And I get it for the accountability, but I think districts have to kind of start waving the white flag and say, okay, states, we need you to stop the hemorrhaging. Let's stitch it up and so we can move.
Exactly, Wilkie. Like, at what point do we say, do I keep calling the parent who has not responded to text, emails, constant calls after 4 weeks? I know we're also afraid of, for at least in Texas, we've been told TEA is going to come in and audit us. We need to make sure we cover our bases. But again, like we talk about giving kids grace, giving parents grace. A lot of my kids have 2-parent working families or 1 single parent working families. And, and really doing their best. They're struggling to make sure that they're doing their jobs and being able to still have a paycheck, or struggling now that they do not have a paycheck.
Mhm.
And the parents need us to, and I always try to really tell my parents, you're doing a great job. You're doing awesome. You can do it too. Like, they need to be, reminded that do not stress. Just do the best that you can. Your student will be fine. Your kid will be fine. I promise. We'll all make through. We'll come to August. We'll catch your children up. But parents, they need the reminders too. I think we focus so much on children, but now we're in the business of working with parents. I'm doing more parent phone calls than I've ever done in my career combined. It's a short career so far, but like, this has been huge. I'm really learning that piece of let's talk to parents every single day.
Mhm.
Well, and here's something that people might like, it might not sit like in the most comfortable spot with folks, but if we as teachers didn't have a solid communication with our parents before all this, why would we expect them to now respond to us after we haven't set that up in the entire beginning of the year? And I think for some teachers, like, that parent communication was like a thing, but then other teachers, like, it wasn't maybe necessarily a priority for whatever reason. And so now, like, Teaching in Tights made a really thoughtful story about this on Instagram, and it like really resonated with me. Like, if parents never heard from teachers during the regular school year, and now they're being expected to respond, like, would you respond? And I don't think I would. Like, if this is the first time my teacher is showing like an interest or like trying to get a hold of me, right? Like, would I respond, or would I prioritize other things instead? And that like really like sat with me and made me reevaluate, like, how did I communicate with parents before? How am I communicating with parents now? And is there like what's that difference? What's that piece? Were parents, did they feel valued
Mhm.
as part of their students, like um or sorry, did caregivers feel valued as part of like their student education process, like before crisis schooling started, and for my classroom specifically? So that was like a really important reflection piece for me.
I love that you say that, Ace, because that's something I've thought of moving forward. M- like, I know now going into next year, this is what I need to focus on. Like, I love building relationships with my students. I pride myself on being great at building relationships. But the one thing that I have not focused on or need improvement on is building relationships with my parents. Because with 122, 130 students, it's difficult to stay on top of it. So I need to make sure, I am connecting with the caregivers and making sure that I am on top of it, building that relationship within the first couple weeks of school.
And I have a different philosophy. My philosophy is I like the parents to learn me through their kids. So I encourage kids to talk to their parents. And now I'm reevaluating that, because one thing that I wanted to do this year was start having evening conversations, like come have coffee and tea, coffee and tea and cookies with Mr. Law, and invite one of my classes at one night. The next time, invite my other parents, and bring the parents into the learning environment, not for a school structure thing, but just for you to understand my heart as a teacher and what your kids see when they walk into the classroom. And I wanted to do that this year, and I didn't get it going. Um, a lot of logistic stuff. You can't do it on this day because of that, and you can't do it because of this. Um, but now I'm seeing that that has to become a priority, um, because you're right, Ace. The parents that I talk to all year long, those kids are online. Those kids are online. The parents that may have slipped through the crack because their kid was quiet, or kind of one of those kids that kind of float, and you don't ever have an issue. You don't have ever have, those parents, those kids are not, even though they're good kids, I can see where that misstep of not connecting with their parent, because it's the parents. When I asked my kids, did y'all get my announcements in the email? They was like, no, my mom told me that I needed to get online. And I use Class Dojo, and those parents that are connected to my Class Dojo, those are the ones I engage with. I would always send out messages through our stories and through things like that. But now to be in a situation to realize what you just said, Ace, those parents that are not, why would they answer my call? I'm with you. I'm a parent. And if I haven't heard from you all year long, And the first time you called me is wanting to check up on my daughter to see if she turned in some work during COVID. Just because I'm an educator, I would probably entertain your conversation. But if I hadn't talked to you at all, yeah,
You probably just feel like it's a robo dial.
Right. And I'll treat it that way.
Yeah, but
I have a call screener on my Google.
Yeah.
Plug for Google. I have a call screener, and I screen the call and hang up. Okay, done. Put it as spam.
I think our next podcast when we get together is going to have to be about all the things, all the assumptions we had about school that are going to have to change next year, like parent communication and the biggest mistake. And I can't believe it took this for me to realize that like the kids being digitally savvy with their phones and TV and all that is not the same thing as academic, like digital literacy. It sort of reminds me, Wilkie, of when I moved to Houston and I had to learn the difference between conversational English from non-native English speakers and academic English. They are two totally different things. So,
and it's because when you talk about technology and digital learning, that's a literacy. That's like a competency in literacy. You know, literacy says, do you know how to navigate the English language? Well, dealing with digital, do you know how to navigate this digital space? Do you know how to do a search for something? Do you know that if there are other pages that open up when you do a Google search? Do you know that there's certain places you should go and you shouldn't go? You know, we don't have those discussions with kids. And I think that those are things that we have to, moving forward next year, and in the future, not just next year, but it's something that we have to completely revamp. And this, like I said, this is my soapbox, and I get excited about COVID for this because we actually get to reinvent education. We get to reinvent it completely. In over 200 years, it's been the exact same format, and everybody's been required to do, you know, I think about that Albert Einstein, if you judged a fish on his ability to climb trees, it would always be dumb, or, you know, something like that. So when you think about it, we've been asking every kid to perform the exact same task, the exact same way for so long, because that was our assembly line, first industrial revolution mindset. We're going into our fourth industrial revolution. We have self-driving cars. And you're saying we can't educate our kids any better than what we did during the first? We have to shift that. And I think now COVID is opening up the eyes of educators and policymakers to where they're going to have to realize that it has to change. It has to change.
I think that this is the time to focus on that before any of the other pieces. This is the time for the teachers to push hard on their leaders that everything that we've been scrambling and clawing our way through just to like survive in your previous expectations, it needs to go in the trash. Like, it's time. And, you know, that's what I was looking at survey data about kids and how they were feeling about their distance learning. And I was frustrated because it was a survey created by one of these ed tech companies. Well, of course, what do we know about polling and surveys? Like, you know, you're not gonna publish results if it's gonna make your platform look bad. So how do we get genuine answers from our kids of what they really, with this in mind moving forward, if things cannot look like what traditional schooling looked like, what really helped you, what worked for you, what do you need? And that's going to take legwork on schools' parts. That means going door to door and dropping off paper questionnaires. That means, you know, actually letting the community have town hall community conversations and have families engaging with our school leaders and policymakers. Because I really think that's going to be the most important piece in the next 6 months. If we allow our mindset to be, I just want things to go back to the way they were, they'll make sure that happens. They'll say, no, go do what you're supposed to do. Go into a building with a bunch of sick people and do your job. And if you don't, you'll get fired and you'll lose your income. But if we take the next, 6 months of 2020 to really push a narrative of, we want to protect kids and families, and we want to make sure access is important to kids, or is important in what we do for our kids. We still have kids who don't have devices in San Antonio. We still have kids in rural communities who have no Wi-Fi access. Like Austin ISD, they're driving buses into neighborhoods to have hotspots. But if you go 15 minutes east of that in Maynard ISD, there's no Wi-Fi buses driving around. It's still a large suburban community, huge district. But sorry, like, you're gonna have to ride your bike a couple of miles down the road to hang out in the neighborhood for the other district. There's a huge limitation when it's local decisions that are not equitable. So I don't know if I got way off topic there. But I'm thinking, like,
but it's funny because our district launched a campaign saying Park and Learn, where parents could literally drive to the schools and use the school's Wi-Fi because if you're in the parking lot, the Wi-Fi signal is strong enough that it'll work. And so that kind of curtailed parents who did not get a device we gave out hotspots too. I mean, for kids who don't have it, we gave out hotspots. So, only 612. We only did the secondary. We didn't do it in the elementaries. And so my wife's campus is seeing, she's in a majority Hispanic neighborhood, low income. A lot of those kids don't have devices. They don't have cell phones, at that level. And so what do you do for those kids? Like, you're missing a huge population of kids. But again, it's like, how do we make sure that there's that equity in the access to eliminate that gap? And that's going to be huge moving forward. I think districts have to really get a serious plan in place. And like you say, this next 6 months, stop worrying about trying to put a Band-Aid on this wound right now. Let's get everybody on the table. Let's do the surgery. Let's remove whatever shrapnel's in there from COVID. Let's stitch it up, and let's give everybody this time to heal. Now let us as leaders prepare for next year so that we can know moving forward what it's going to look like. How can we reimagine all of these things that we're doing and make it to where our school day becomes more fitting for the times that we're in? Like that, I think that is where. But again, that accountability from the states. We gave you money. Show me what you're doing. You're going to work the dog mess out of us next year. Like, we're going to work as classroom teachers next year because we got to re-socialize kids. Then we have to re-engage the learning. We have to do so much. So what we're doing right now, I love it. I love being able to see my kids. But give me a medium where I can just connect with my kids strictly on some social emotional learning. Let me just have some conversations with them. Let me just do check-ins. Let me have them create memes to share how they're feeling. I didn't know how to respond. I had a kid who tell me, I'm depressed. Help me. I took it seriously, and I was like, hey, we need to email my counselor. I need to find out what's going on. And the kid was like, so I emailed the kid and said, hey, such and such. He's like, oh no, my mom is getting on my nerves. I can't be at home too long, da-da-da-da. I'm like, hey, you can't make statements like that. Depression is real, and I know depression's clouds your decision making. And so, yeah, I can say we have to. Maybe that's something we need to figure out as a group. Like, how can we help usher in, a change in education? Go to change.org and start a campaign, and let's get some teachers rallying around it so that they can hear a voice. That there are people out here who really still believe that social emotional needs of our kids supersedes any type of content that you want to deliver to them. that really, 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 and especially now, it's more important than ever. Especially now.
All right.
So, anything you want to add, Kyle?
No, that was really
I think that was
enjoyable.
a great ending point right there. Social emotional needs of children. That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
That's where learning happens.
and I
We even talked about the fact that I think we need to start putting content out for kids in places where kids are. I know I'm working with a guy now to try to figure out how to put some stuff on TikTok because I want to reach my kids. I just looked up and I was like, oh, about 30 of my kids started following me on TikTok. I got excited. It went from 9 to 39 in just 1 week. I'm like, hey, I can do this. So I'm like, now that they know I'm there, let me start giving them something. Let me start working with them and giving them not math, but what they need every day. Just to know it's going to be all right. You're not behind. You're not. Everybody's exactly where they're supposed to be. we're not behind. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. And
If we've all been in this weird time loop, are we all behind? No, we're all like,
no,
nobody got that much farther ahead of you than
yeah. Well, in my organization, we talk about our big mantra is forward motion. So like anything is helping with forward motion. And sometimes, that's not going to happen, but but when you do try, so each time you try, and like you said, chip away at those, some of those challenges, you're making steps.
I want to thank you again from the bottom of our hearts, from the team here at Value Adds Value and Lighthouse Educator Development, for listening to this podcast. It would mean the world to us if you would subscribe, if you would share, and if you would just help us reach more people and continue to work on getting kids the teachers they deserve. And as I said in the intro, I'll keep saying it, we're in this with you. No matter what happens, please, if there's anything you need, reach out. You can find us at theledproject.com. You can find us on social media at its.will.law.iii. You can find me as mr.k.inroom508. You can find Lauren as the Real Traveling Teacher. Daleen is Cohort of Care, and Ace is Teaching Outside the Binary. So if you want to reach out, connect with any of us, hear more, and get our support, please don't hesitate to reach out. And we hope you tune in next week where we share a conversation with our good friend Vanessa Taborda-Cronin, who is also joining our team. So we're thrilled to share that with you. And like I said, more than anything, we're in this with you. So if you need anything, please reach out. Have a great week, everybody. Talk soon.